My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good morning, good day, good evening, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are tuning in from. Apologies for one or two little delays. I was just still making my coffee, but I have it now, and I'm ready to talk tennis with you. Just going to grab my phone, get your questions in the live chat, because we're going to be talking all things tennis. There is a focus on Miami. And there is a focus as well on the previews of upcoming matches, but there's a couple of other things I want to just talk about as well. But you can basically talk about anything tennis related, and I will try and address it. But just so you know the running order, I just want to talk a little bit about Alex Eala, her loss against Karolina Muchova, and also a pattern that I see emerging, as well as the upcoming clay season. Then we will get into all of the matches that are due to take place over the next 24 hours, and we'll do them in a particular order. We'll start with Jessica Pegula against Elena Rybakina. We'll stay on the women's side and then talk about Aryna Sabalenka against Baptiste. And then we'll talk about Coco Gauff against Karolina Muchova. We'll do that as well with the backdrop of their recent matches. So if you've got something to say about Muchova beating Mboko, again, in very similar fashion, or Coco Gauff beating Belinda Bencic as well, we will talk about that within the focus of the previews. We'll also have a look towards some of the men's singles matches coming up, such as Landaluce against Lehecka. And then I think tomorrow, or at least tonight, there will be Tommy Paul against Artur Fils, but also tomorrow quarterfinals involving Francis Tiafoe and Jannik Sinner, and Franz Cerundolo against Alexander Zverev. I'm just going to change my background. We're going to start with Eala. So if you've got anything Eala related, get it in the chat now, or we might miss it. There we go. All right. I will come to the chat, looking at some of your questions, some of your points. And Jean here coming in straight away with Eala has a ceiling against the top players. Her serve gets exposed. Yes, I agree, but there's a whole lot more to that. And I also think the nature of these losses, because she's taken some pretty brutal ones, right? I mean, we're watching Eala do fantastic things, pull up trees, pull wins from the draws of defeats. Also some very impressive straight sets wins, such as the one against Sardana Costea a couple of months ago, and Jasmine Paolini as well. I think there's a slight asterisk beside the Paolini one in terms of both the matchup, but also where Paolini is at right now. But if we think about some of these losses, if we go back to, let's have a look at the French Open 2025. She lost, it was a 3-setter to Arango there. But if I look at Alex Eala, I feel like there's been a few. I know, of course, the ones with Coco Gauff, Linda Noskova, and now Karolina Muchova, all exactly the same. All very close to double bagels, all involving just 2 game wins for Alex Eala. The Noskova one, of course, is a little bit different because she got those 2 games in the first set. But the Gauff was huge. It feels like she runs out of steam in a lot of these matches as well, having obviously put in so much effort in the previous rounds that she does seem to run out of steam. I saw that she had the thigh strapped up and did seem a little bit unwell at times. Yeah, I mean, think back to, she breaks out in Miami, and that's the only one really where she came up against an elite player in Jessica Pegula in the semis, and it was a tight 3-setter. If we then fast forward to Rome, Marta Kostyuk, 6-love, 6-1. Brutal. And Marta Kostyuk, somebody who moves much better on the clay and also plays with enough aggression, but also enough margin to cause Alex trouble. Listen out for some of those words. Now, I totally agree with Jean in terms of her serve getting exposed. It does, although we did see some signs during the grass court season last year and even during the Middle East and Indian Wells where there was a high percentage from Alex. I think that is something for her to focus on. I think if she could develop a decent kick serve or just big style, just go for the slice out wide where possible, that might get her a few more cheaper points because she's not going to get many on her serve. Anyway, these brutal losses that I want to highlight, I've already highlighted the Kostyuk one. We then had Just going through some of her results from the last 12 months. Because it's a lot. It's 4. I mean, Valentova, I guess, 6-1, 6-2. She wins 3 games there. If we look at matches where she's winning, let's just maybe hone in on the ones where she's winning 2 or fewer. Because there is enough to choose from. I mean, we've got 4 with Kostyuk and these 3 in recent weeks that I've just highlighted. The Alexandrova one felt like it, to be fair. Again, margin and aggression. And someone who's not going to be unnerved or perturbed by Alex Eala's ability to hang in there and pick up the pace. She can also absorb pace as well, although that was 3-3. And then we've got this 3 in very quick succession in the last 5 weeks or so, where against Coco Gauff, 6-love, 6-2, could easily have been a double bagel. Linda Noskova, 6-2, 6-love, huge discrepancy. Again, Noskova playing such aggressive tennis, but with margin and able to... the other thing as well with a lot of these players, I think Coco, Noskova, and Muchova, by the way, I think is serving some of the best tennis of her career. All of them have really good second serves. Yes, Coco Gauff will give you a few cheap points with double faults. In fact, she hit double figures, even though they only played 14 games. And so 7 service games. She still managed to hit double faults on her serve. But yes, that is a concern. And there's other concerns I've got as well, which I'll be mentioning in a minute. And then, of course, this Muchova loss, and Muchova serving so well. I didn't think it would be that comfortable, but I did fear the worst for Eala, because I saw Muchova as being a better version of Laura Siegemund, a bit more controlled and a bit more, a better slice as well, but also a better serve. And that is something that Eala struggles. She's an unbelievable returner, and she will punish anyone with anything between a mid-range to a weak serve, especially the second serve. But if you're in the sort of goodish range to very good, but you also hit your spots, as Muchova is doing this week, you are going to be in big trouble. Okay, there is a second area of concern that I want to highlight with Alex Eala, and it's to do with the upcoming clay court season. It's interesting that she's chosen to go in pretty high. She's going to play the Linz WTA 500 as opposed to a 125. Personally, I think I would rather see her play a 125 and try and get some wins and matches, because I do fear the worst. She doesn't have many points to defend, so that is a good thing. There's 1 win in Madrid, I think, and 1 win in Huerash at the 125 last year. I think she had just 2 wins on the clay last season, and I can see listen, if she gets 3 wins this year, I think that would be a step forward, because I do think clay, despite the fact that she's obviously grown up at the Rafa Nadal Academy, is an issue for Alex and will continue to be, bearing in mind her movement in particular, which excels on the hard courts. Her serve gets a bit more pop as well on the grass, and I think she benefits from that, as well as the movement that she's able to pull off. But the clay is the most difficult and most challenging surface for her anyway. She may yet prove me wrong, either this year and in years to come, and I know she's keen to do so. She has told me, for example, she grew up on hard, and that's why that is a more natural surface for her. But yeah, there is more room for improvement on the clay than other surfaces. So it's interesting she's going for but I do fear that she might have a couple of early losses in these tournaments in Linz and Madrid. At least in Linz, I think, as I say, the field is nowhere near as strong as it is in Stuttgart. That could be another bloodbath, should she choose that. Don't expect much from her on clay. No, I agree. One more thing. Yeah, so Eala has a ceiling against top players, so gets exposed. I do think there is that's a huge element to it, but there is more. There is more. And these losses, normally we say, oh, it's a learning curve. You know, Rafa, Novak, Roger, Serena Williams have all taken brutal losses early in their career. But in the space of 6 weeks, we've seen her have very, very heavy losses that could easily have been double bagels. And yeah, I think that is a concern going forward. I think you can brush 1 aside, maybe 2, But to have 4 that I just highlighted in the last 10 months, Kostrick in Rome, Gauff in the Middle East, Noskova in Indian Wells, and now here in Miami. And Miami, the conditions very much suiting Alex as much as they can. And yes, the physical side of it as well. I think she does run into some issues there as she has some really tough matches and then finally runs out of a bit of steam. Indeed, crushing losses. Indeed. Yes. Alex Eala may not yet get top 10 or top 20 for sure, but I definitely think she's already broken into the top 30, Rupert. And as I say, she doesn't have a lot to defend in this clay section of the year, so she might be seeded for Roland Garros still, but she's probably going to have to win 5 or 10 matches on clay for that to happen. And that is a tall order. She's obviously slipped down to, what is Alex Eala live ranking? I'm going to say 45, because she's obviously lost a lot of points after the Miami run of last year to the semis. She is currently in the live ranking, and there will be 1 or 2 little adjustments to this. 45. And that's probably where she'll stay until Linz, but there might be 1 or 2 slight adjustments to that, depending on the performances of others. I think she wants to be seeded in Madrid, so she went to Linz for a possibility, so she gets to semifinals, a luck in draw. Yeah, quite possibly, but I think her main focus should be just try and get seeded for Wimbledon. That is possible. She's got some points to defend because she made the Eastbourne final last year. And she had some other good wins on the grass as well in the UK. But I think the game is there to get some good results. And she was unlucky with her first round draw being Krejcikova, who, of course, that went 3 sets at Wimbledon. But I can see her with either a kind draw or being seeded before Wimbledon. But she's probably going to have to win a 250 maybe to do that, or certainly a 125. If that is the case. Eala sort of has a raft of coaches from the Rafa Nadal Academy. Her main coach, I think, is Alex Borch. I'm going to check this. But I think his name is Alex Borch, the older guy. He wasn't with her. Oh, Joan Borch. Yeah, that's her main coach. He's also from the Rafa Nadal Academy. And then there's a guy called Sandro as well, who was with her in Indian Wells. Sandro, I think his name's Sandro Biani, and that was her coach there. But he's, I think, the secondary coach. It might even be Sandro Dienado or Sandro Viani. Anyway, there's a couple of differences. Oh, okay, Sandro is like the nickname anyway. So Alexandro Viani. But he's the secondary coach. The main coach is Joan Borch. And they are both from the Rafa Nadal Academy. All right. Let's move on. Get your questions in before we preview some of these upcoming matches in Miami, including one that starts in a couple of hours between Rybakina and Pegula. Shall we have a quick thought on some other people losing? Let's have a look. Not if their matches are related to matches upcoming, but I'm thinking, we've kind of, Iga Swiatek and Carlos Alcaraz, their losses and repercussions are so, just 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago in terms of coaching changes, etc. But 24 hours is a long time in tennis. Haley Baptiste, yeah. Andreeva. How bad was the injury against Mboko? How debilitating was it? Because I think Andreeva and Anisimova are in 2 spells right now, both of them for very different reasons and coming at it from different perspectives. But both of those 2 players for me are in spells of a lacking confidence, doubt, creeps in, I think, for both of these players with their makeups, but to some extent, in Andreeva's case, her age. It is affecting their tennis. I think, particularly in Andreeva's case, but also Anisimova, I do think it's more of a blip than a decline or anything in particular. Miro Andreeva, obviously very young. So that's how I see their situations. Anything else just before we get into these previews? I just want to reflect on sort of 48 hours ago because, Cilic, yeah, nice little three-set. I say nice little three-set loss, but, Mensik, by the way. I mean, Mensik could easily be playing Jannik Sinner today, but Tiafoe had other ideas, and hats off to him. Mikkelsen, nice little run. Maybe he should have got at least a set. He was up 5-2, wasn't he, in that second set on Jannik. Oh, Tsitsipas. Let's have a quick word on him before we look forward to these matches. Stefanos Tsitsipas was complaining about the darkness, wasn't he? I can't see the ball, he was saying. I don't know how he's seeing the ball. And he was sort of fumbling over his words to the umpire. Like, can you imagine me playing 5 hours of tennis and not being able to hit a serve +1 forehand? I mean, yeah. I think he'd only been on the court for 20 minutes at that point, and he was already down 5-love. Actually, I think it was a set and a break, and it was more like half an hour. But I posted on Twitter, and it was kind of a joke, but also kind of serious about where we're at in the Stefanos Tsitsipas cycle at the moment. As in, here's the beginning of the cycle. My father's my coach. My father's my coach. My father's my coach. Things are going great. Things are not going great. Things are not looking good. Things are looking unhealthy. My father's going to take a back seat. He's still my father, but he's not going to be the prime coach anymore. My father's not my coach. This guy's now my coach. He's going to take me back to where I want to be. He's not my coach. Weeks later, this coach is dispensed off, and a father's back on the team. Results don't really improve. In fact, they get worse. Results don't improve. They get worse. Results don't improve. They get worse. There's a little moment, couple of wins. The results don't improve. They get worse. Change the coach. Bring in a new coach. He's going to be the answer. My father's going to take a back seat, and so on and so on. And this cycle goes round and round and round. I just wonder where we're at in that cycle. Hey, Ghosty. I know. I still haven't got over the fact that Stefanos Tsitsipas threatened to physically assault a fellow professional last year, and not a single person batted an eyelid. And yet, Medvedev shouts at the crowd, and everyone comes down on him like a ton of potatoes. Yeah, that is Stefanos Tsitsipas. So we're on somewhere in that cycle right now, probably somewhere towards the coaching change situation. But yeah, we'll see how that pans out. Okay. Next on the list, let's have a look. As I said, I'm going to get some head-to-heads and share them with you on the screen, but this will take me a minute or two. Got Pegula against Rybakina, for example, on the horizon. Definitely want to talk about that. We've got Bencic, Gauff as well on the horizon. Definitely want to talk about that. Jannik Sinner against Tiafoe. Definitely want to talk about that. Landaluce. Lehecka, is it easy playing? Yes, Lehecka. Definitely want to talk about that. What's the other men's match today? And we've got Zverev Cerundolo. Is that today or tomorrow? Yeah, their head-to-head's very interesting. So there's 6 matches I want to sort of look at. I'll reflect on their previous matches. Oh, yeah, Sabalenka Baptiste, of course. Oh, WTA website. Okay, Sabalenka Baptiste never played before. Landaluce Lehecka. Tommy Paul Arthur Feast. That's the one that's missing from what I've been talking about. I know we have an Arthur Feast fan in the chat. Tommy Paul, I saw him getting a bit of grief on the stream yesterday. Yeah, so get your questions in, and I will do my best to address them in the context of these matches. Okay. All right, just need a little sip on the coffee. I really would like another coffee, but I don't know if I can make it live. We will definitely talk about Landaluce. Lux shampoo. There are plenty of Eala haters out there, that is for sure. But I tend to focus on... No, I don't tend to focus. It's not true. I focus on her tennis. I focus on the bigger picture. I focus on what it means for tennis. I look at the fandom, and I do occasionally glance at the haters and just shake my head. That's what I do. Okay. Yeah, maybe. But I think he has some fans, as we know, Ghosty. I'm kind of I don't mind him. Certainly as a guy, I don't mind him. His tennis, yeah, I agree, can be a little bit unexciting at times, but yeah, other times not so much, or more so. All right, shall we get into Pegula Rybakina? I'm going to share their head-to-head with you on the screen right now. This is their head-to-head. Probably doesn't... I bet if you had to guess the head-to-head, it would be something like this, wouldn't it? You'd imagine that Rybakina's won a few, Jessica too, but Rybakina has the edge, which is exactly how it is. Just closing a few windows, excuse me, to make things a little easier for me. All right, shall we have a quick look at how Rybakina got to this stage? I've been a little bit underwhelmed, actually, by her tennis, particularly in Miami, but even in Indian Wells. I didn't find her level in the final against Sabalenka anywhere near as high as what many people were purring. I think the first set, yes, but I think she had a drop-off in sets 2 and 3. I also don't think Sabalenka had a great level in that final, but she just managed to really dig very deep and pull off an incredible backhand on match point. It was an intriguing affair. It was compelling. It was exciting because of the drama, but I don't think that final could lay a glove on their Australian Open final of this year or their Australian Open final of 2023. But I think I might be in the minority on that one. I know that Nick, for example, has fond memories of this final in Indian Wells, and Christian's Court as well from social media and YouTube. As an account I follow dearly, actually, Christian's Court. I like his stuff a lot. Pegula in this tournament. Putintseva straight sets, Kostyuk straight sets, Gibson straight sets. But the level against Gibson, I know Gibson's doing really well, and also Rybakina's level against Sonny Kartal in Indian Wells was like, she sort of manages, and this is why I think, okay, there's a lot of other things going on with Elena in the last couple of years, and we all know about them. They're well documented. We all know about some of the inconsistencies until probably the last 6 months in particular. I actually used to describe her as the most inconsistent player on tour in terms of the fact that she can win a tournament or go out in the first round. And I think that applies to her more than anyone else, because Sabalenka can win a tournament or go out in the first round, not go out in the first round. Swiatek, at least until Miami, first match, of course, not first one, is not someone who loses in her first match, as was proven actually by that incredible stat that she had, where she didn't lose in her first match for 27,000 years or something. And yet there's other players that, yes, can win a tournament or go out in the first round. I'm thinking Jasmine Paolini, Marta Kostyuk maybe. Yeah. Who else? I think Pegula's a bit more solid. But Pegula's sort of quarter semis final, but doesn't quite win it. But yeah, for me, Rybakina, you could throw Gauff into that conversation. But listen, where Rybakina's at now is obviously a much more consistent level. But one of the reasons why I think she is inconsistent is unlike Sabalenka and unlike Swiatek, she does get dragged down a bit. So if the other... I saw some shots that she was receiving off the racket at Gibson the other day, some returns, and I was thinking, this return is quite an easy one to deal with. And Rybakina was dumping it in the net. And then I'll watch her deal with a return from Sabalenka that's fired at her, and she absorbs that pace and gives it back with interest. By the way, this is not me saying bad things about Rybakina, because I think she's in the best spell of her career, because I think she's actually backing up winning the WTA 1000 title, sorry, the WTA finals in Saudi Arabia last year. She backs that up by winning in Australia. She then backs up winning in Australia by getting to the final in Indian Wells, and so on and so forth. I think often we've seen her win tournaments such as Wimbledon 2022 and then not quite back it up in the following matches or tournaments. What about Pegula? Where are we at with her? Well, her unbelievably consistent run just continues. She has not failed to get to a semi-finals since... of any tournament she's entered, I think since Cincinnati, but I'm just going to check. Did she get to the semis in Indian Wells? Because she got to the semis at the US Open. She got to the semis at the China Open. She got to the final in Wuhan. She got to the semis at the WTA finals. She got to the semis in Brisbane. She got to the semis in Australia. She got to the final and won it, finally winning a tournament in Dubai. And then, okay, she lost in the quarters in Indian Wells to Elena Rybakina. But basically, she goes deep wherever she plays, and she's gone deep again here. Coffee's just done. They're head-to-head, by the way. Shall I have a quick look at the chat? I'm just seeing what's going on. Yes, indeed, she made the quarters in Indian Wells. Jean there, sort of, Jean and Ghosty highlighting that. Thank you. There are 3 players on the WTA tour right now that are showing incredible form, and 2 of them are playing each other again in the quarterfinal stage. So it's unlucky for both players, but for Pegula in particular, this draw in that she keeps running into Elena before the final, for example. But also, when you've got the 3 best players in the world right now, and that 2 of them are in the same quarter as they were in Indian Wells, and now again in Miami. And by the way, Coco Gauff can enter this conversation very, very soon. In fact, she may even be entering it already. But right now, we probably still need her to get to the final or win a tournament before we can really rubber stamp that. But right now, over the last 7 months, there are 3 players that have incredible win-loss ratios in the form of Rybakina and Sabalenka. I'm going to say both are around about 80 or 90%. Pegula's is a little bit lower, but she's getting to the semis and the final everywhere until Indian Wells, and even there, it's still the quarters. It was a tough draw in that we had the 3 best players in the world right now, all in the same half, and then we had Iga in the bottom half, but she went out early. So that bottom half was always going to be open for a final run for a Coco Gauff, a Karolina Muchova, etc., etc. But we'll come to that shortly. Let's have a quick look at their matches. I want to get some predictions from you in the live chat regarding Pegula and Rybakina. I need to see your predictions. I'm going to go to their head-to-head, and then we will look at your predictions in the live chat. Here we go. So 5 wins for Rybakina, 3 for Pegula. The most recent of which, they've had 2 matches on hard courts this year, haven't they? In Indian Wells and Australian Open. And similar fashion, 2 straight sets wins for Rybakina, but that one in Australia could easily have gone 3 sets. Rybakina was up a break. I think she was even maybe serving for the match and couldn't close it out. And then Pegula got the bit between her teeth and nearly won it on the tiebreak. 9-7, that tiebreak loss was. So that was super tight. Similar in Indian Wells. I think the margin seemed a bit wider there between the 2 players. But again, Rybakina winning in straight sets, including a second set tiebreak. The WTA finals, when Rybakina just was playing unbelievable tennis, won all her matches against top 10 opponents, of course, including Jessica Pegula in the semis there, 6-3 in the 3rd set. And in fact, that's a run of 3 wins in a row. But the previous time to that, they played at the WTA finals in Cancun, and that was a win for Pegula. But they didn't play each other in 2024. And now So they didn't play each other for 2 years. And now they've played each other 3 times, and they're going to play each other 4 times in 4 months, 5 months. So an incredible run there. I would imagine that these two players, in terms of their surface preference. Oh, by the way, every single match they've played has been on a hard court. They've never played off hard. That's interesting. But I imagine if they played each other on grass and clay, because of their preferences and where they're at, I don't think it would affect the head. Let's just say they played each other 8 times on clay. I think it would probably be 5-3 Rybakina. If they played each other 8 times on grass, you might lean a bit more to Elena, but who knows? Pegula's very, very good on the grass, and I think she has a Wimbledon final in her arsenal and in her career somewhere, and maybe that will be this year. Maybe it has to be this year or never in a way for Jessica. I think she is probably playing the best tennis of her career. But so's Elena Rybakina, despite some of those comments about bringing her level down. And they also played each other in the Billie Jean King. Okay, that isn't mentioned in the head-to-head Johnny list. Thanks for highlighting that. I want some predictions for you. You're feeling Rybakina gets a set, but you are... Sorry, Pegula gets a set, but you are going for Rybakina in 3. Ghosty's also going for Rybakina in 3. The Billie Jean King Cup finals last year were in Malaga, I think. Or no, they were in maybe they were in Saudi Arabia. Anyway, you know what? Get your predictions in quickly because I won't be showing them anymore. I am also going for a Rybakina win and also in 3 sets. All right. That is Pegula, Rybakina, tick. Coco Gauff is going to be playing Belinda Bencic. I would love to hear your thoughts on Coco. Oh, what am I saying? Scratch that. This is why I often pre-record these. What am I talking about? That's who they just played each other. I need to get Coco Gauff against Karolina Muchova, which is a brutal head-to-head. If you are a Karolina Muchova fan, if you are a fan, please look away now or hide behind the sofa. Because this head-to-head is 5-0 in favor of Coco Gauff. I do want to get your reflections on Coco Gauff's 3-set win against Belinda Bencic. I am going to briefly reflect on that, and I have to confess I didn't see the match live. I am going off what I'm seeing from people's opinions who I respect, not going off the ones that I don't. But yeah, these two are going to come up against each other in the semi-final of Miami. Another semi-final at 1,000 level for Karolina Muchova. Of course, she won a 1,000 recently in the Middle East, where she beat Mboko in 2 extremely tight sets. And that's exactly what she did in the quarterfinals here. But people seem to be talking about Coco Gauff. She had a 3-set win over Castella. She had a 3-set win over Parks. She had a 3-set win over Cocciaretto. And now she's had a 3-set win over Belinda Bencic. So if Muchova wants to play Coco, a fatigued Coco, this might be the one and best opportunity for that. But that head-to-head is brutal. And sometimes I go into this matchup thinking, okay, I think Muchova's got a chance, and I think she's going to do it today. But no, it never works out that way. I think they had an interesting match at the US Open last year, for example. But I don't know. I think maybe Muchova was a little bit spooked by it as well. I think that can happen. But yeah, Gauff is managing to dig deep. I saw that 3-set win she had over Elise Mertens. And I saw Gauff in the Middle East have that early loss to Cocciaretto. And then at the next tournament, looked like she was going to go out early again to Elise Mertens, but she pulled through. And for me, that was a turning point in her season. She does lose to Svitolina in the semis, but it was an epic match, and Coco could easily have won that. And in the end, that proved to be a tick for a tournament as far as I'm concerned. And this one as well, obviously getting to the semifinals, but maybe because of their head-to-head, she's going to have to at least make the final. And boy, if she plays Sabalenka in that final, I think that could be fun. But that's looking a little bit further ahead. As for Muchova, she is serving so well at the moment. I put up a stat on Twitter yesterday. I think she's only been broken once in her last 3 matches. I think she's only faced 1 break point in her last 3 matches, actually. And that was against Katie Bolter 3 matches ago. She's just beaten Mboko and Eala, and we know about Eala's returning prowess, and we also know about Mboko's abilities, and yet she's only faced 1 break point in the 6 sets against Bolter, Eala, and Mboko, which is incredible. And I even posed the question, has she ever served better in her career? Well, she's going to have to serve very well against Coco Gauff. I also want to get your predictions in the live chat right now for this matchup, so that way you get it in, and then I'll share them before I make mine. Let's have a quick look at some of these losses, by the way, that Muchova has suffered at the hands of Coco Gauff. By the way, I think arguably Muchova's playing the best tennis of her career in general. And fingers crossed she can get to another slam final, maybe at the French Open, if she can just stay healthy. In Germany, by the way, we say Daumendrücken, which is just put your thumb in between your sort of Daumendrücken, press your thumb into your hand, which basically means the same as fingers crossed. There you go. Little cultural lesson. By the way, I think Coco Gauff has one of the best second serves in the world in that conversation. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with that. The problem is it doesn't always land in, and hence she double faults so often. It's not the only reason for the double faults, but I do think it's a factor that we sometimes ignore, the fact that she does take maybe a little bit more risk on that second serve. There are other issues of foot, as we can see, because sometimes that second serve just sort of arcs itself and hits the middle or even the bottom of the net. So that's obviously not about taking a risk. I think it could well be about the ball toss as much as anything else. So anyway, they had a 3-set match in the Australian Open this year that went the way of Coco Gauff. Oh, it was Australia, not the US Open. I'm getting confused between my 2 slams there. There was a straight sets win at the United Cup for Coco Gauff in 2025. They also had a straight sets win. In fact, if there is something for Muchova to get, maybe a little bit, she took her first set of Coco Gauff in their 5th encounter. So she is at least getting closer. She is at least getting closer to Coco. Is it going to be enough, though, in this semi-final? Get your predictions in the live chat. I'm going to share mine now, and it is Coco Gauff in 3 sets to make the Miami final for the first time in her career. Are there any predictions in the live chat? I've already answered this question, Ghosty. The Castella win was very good, considering Castella is playing the best tennis of her career. I don't think that's, you don't even need to add in your opinion, Ghosty. I think that's just a fact. There's so many players playing the best. I've already said Pegula. I've already said Rybakina, and we're now throwing in Castella. We're throwing in Muchova for sure as well. Just everyone except for Iga is playing the best tennis of their career, because I think Sabalenka's probably, well, she's just playing an incredible three and a bit years, isn't she? Especially on hard courts anyway. Right. Coco in 2. I don't know if it's Coco in 2 finally, Gene, because Coco's won 4 of their 5 matches in 2 sets. So Muchova in 3. Big call, Ghosty. That is going out on a limb, Ghosty. I don't know how many limbs you're going to have left after this one. And although we can call you Bill Call, Ghosty, if you wish, but I know you mean Big Call. All right. Let's move on. And let's have a look at Aryna Sabalenka against Hailey Baptiste. Their head-to-head is as follows. Never played each other before. A little bit surprising, perhaps. Baptiste, by the way, what a great run for her in Miami. She has done really well to get to this stage, I would argue. Beating Tatiana Maria in the round of 128. I do think a matchup on a hard court would favor Hailey there. Good win over Samsonova, but Samsonova a bit like Alexandrova. Oh, actually, we have mentioned a few players who are in sticky spells, and I think Samsonova, Alexandrova, Anisimova and Mira Andreeva are in that sticky spell. And, well, we all know about Iga's well-documented sticky spell. But really good win over Svitolina. Arguably, that's the win that defines Hailey's tournament. I know she then beat Ostapenko in straight sets in the round of 16. But that win over Svitolina probably is the one that propels her to this stage more than any others. I probably would have fancied Svitolina to make the quarters. And yet here we go. Baptiste up against Aryna Sabalenka. But Sabalenka, I mean, as I say, you can go back to the Australian Open of 2023 and just go, look, these are Sabalenka's results on a hard court in particular. But if we just look at this year alone, she wins in Brisbane. She gets to the final at the Australian Open, and she wins at the Indian Wells. So she's very close to an unbeaten start to this year. And by the way, the tie-break record is just off the charts. Tie-break, Sabalenka wins. End of story. For the last 15 months. I traced it back to the beginning of last year, I think, where this series began. I know she has an unbeaten run in slams at tie breaks, but even if across all tournaments, it's well over 90% over the last 15 months. So get into a tie break with Sabalenka, good luck. As Anne Lee found to her cost. And that was probably as close as Sabalenka came to losing in this tournament, wasn't it? That first set against Anne Lee was super tight. I think Sabalenka was down a break, then up a break, and then eventually was in a tie break in that one. The McNally result, a little bit more comfortable and a really impressive scoreline, at least against Qinwen Zheng, winning that one 6-3, 6-4. Because I think Zheng she's not quite back to her best, but she's certainly getting closer to it. Get your predictions in the live chat for Sabalenka against Baptiste before I give you my prediction. In fact, no, get them in at the same time, because I'm going to share mine now, which is Big Cool John says Aryna Sabalenka in straight sets. I just think the differential is just too big. And I also think the matchup is just too nice for Aryna. I don't think she's going to get overpowered by Hailey like some players might. And I don't think she's going to struggle with Hailey's serve like others do. Okay. Get your predictions in a bit earlier, and then I'll be able to share them and discuss them. So as soon as I go for the next match, which is going to be Frances Tiafoe against Jannik Sinner. I want your predictions in the live chat right now for this match, and then we'll address them, and also just your general points. But in the meantime, I'm going to get into this. I was very interested to hear what Gil Gross had to say about Frances Tiafoe in February. And it was just after he lost in the final to Caboli in Cancun. And I was thinking and feeling to some extent that this was a bad result for Frances and was indicative of just a general malaise, perhaps, over the last 18 months. I remember that racket smash that Frances, just seeing Frances just looking a bit frustrated over the last 18 months. And I just felt that there was a level that was just beyond him in various losses, including at Grand Slams. And sometimes he brings his best, doesn't he, in the slams, but we didn't really see that. Yes, I guess the 5-set loss he had to Alcaraz, but I think that was in 2024 at Wimbledon. I'm going to check that, actually. Yeah, it was 2024. And then Tiafoe, did he beat at the US Open Ben Shelton in 2024? I'm pretty sure that was the case, wasn't it? I think that was a 5-setter as well. Yeah, as he got to the semis. Those 2 slams in 2024, that was the line in the sand for me in terms of, I don't think we've seen Frances threaten at big tournaments. And I saw that loss kind of through a negative prism. Do you see things through a prism? See them through glasses? I don't know. And yet, Gil Gross was like, you know what? I see some shoots of recovery here. I see some positive signs that Frances's game is coming back, that he is going to threaten the top end of tennis. And I actually think, this run to the Miami quarters, even if it does end here, kind of does back up what Gil is saying in terms of where Frances's tennis is at in a more positive light. Tiafoe in this set, this match, we talk about defining matches in their tournament. Well, Tiafoe's obviously was against Mensik in the second round, although you might argue the win over Admani was a tricky one as well. The Admani serve, by the way, what a funky, quick serve that is, and fine. When I say quick, I mean the motion in particular. Grabbing the ball and off we go. Yeah, but that third set tiebreak win, 13-11 against Mensik, was epic and definitely defined his tournament. But yeah, I think we're not seeing Francis beating Alcaraz and Sinner, I don't think, anytime soon. And I'm giving you a bit of a clue in terms of how I think this match is going to pan out. But you know what? If the rest of not the rest of the tour, I think if you're Ben Shelton, if you're Jack Draper, if you are maybe Holger Rune eventually when he gets back fit and firing again, and Jakub Mensik, and maybe João Fonseca, but maybe another year or so away for that one. Those guys will, and Djokovic, of course, those guys are not just happy with being the third best player in the world. But actually, if you could be the third best player in the world at some tournaments, you're going to make the final. And if you could be the third best player in the world at other tournaments, you might win it. Because Yannick and Carlos are not going to be at that tournament sometimes. And also you might get favorable with a draw, or you might see them go out early in the case of Carlos here. So, yeah. And so if Francis is in that conversation that he plays the third best tennis in the world one week, well, that might win him a 500. It might get him in the final of a 1,000 or even a Grand Slam. Not the French Open, though, Francis. As for Jannik Sinner is it, I think, 28 sets in a row at Masters 1000 level. Of course, he's in the middle of an 18-set winning streak at the moment, just across all tournaments, since losing to Jakub Mensik a couple of, or 5 weeks ago. And then looking at the head-to-head, and keep your predictions coming in the live chat. We'll come to those in a moment. Looking at the head-to-head, 4-1 in Yannick's favor. But Yannick 2.0, as in the new Yannick, the world number one, world number two Yannick, which began at the back end of 2023. In that spell, Yannick beat Tiafoe in straight sets in Vienna. He then also beat him in Cincinnati in 2024, also in straight sets. Francis has also beaten Yannick once, and that was in Vienna in 2021. So they've not played each other for 18, 19 months since Cincinnati. All of their matches have been on a hard court, by the way. 4 of the 5 have been on indoor hard. I think if this was on clay, I would have no doubts about which way it was going to go. On grass, I think Tiafoe would have a better chance, especially over 3. No, actually, maybe even over 5 sets, bearing in mind how Yannick's 5-set record is. So a Wimbledon clash, maybe. If Francis could get it into a 5th set, then he might fancy his chances, bearing in mind Yannick doesn't win too many 5-setters, which is definitely a chink in his armor. But this is not on grass. And this is Jannik Sinner, who, despite getting broken yesterday against Mickelson, and Mickelson troubling him for a little spell in that second set, and Mickelson probably should have pushed it to a third. I'm still pretty sure Yannick would have won in 3, but yeah. This is not a good matchup for Francis, even if Francis has turned a corner, as Gil Gross highlighted. And I'm going to go for Jannik Sinner in straight sets. Gene is going for Sinner in 2 sets. Ghosty here says Tiafoe in 2, but then they'll call a heat break or something. So Sinner in 3. Very good. I like it. And yeah. Okay. Let's look ahead. I do have lots of thoughts on Mickelson, but basically he just couldn't return Yannick's serve. And sometimes they weren't even amazing. Sometimes they were good serves, but not all the time. And Sinner was just streets ahead of Mickelson on the return. All right. Next match I want to look forward to is one that's coming up today between Martin Landaluce and Jiří Lehecka. Yes, the qualifier, Martin Landaluce, is in the quarterfinals. I do think that little bit fortunate against Sebi Korda yesterday. But let's take nothing away from the bigger picture. He's come through qualies. He beat Tarante in 3 sets, coming from a set behind. He beats Giron in 2 close sets. He beats Darderi in the round of 64 in 3 sets. He beats Khachanov, which is a really, really impressive win in 2 sets, and then beats Sebi Korda yesterday, come from a set down. But there was a huge gap, or a gap. Maybe huge is too big, but there was a gap between Korda and Landaluce, and it was in Korda's favor for somewhere between an hour and a half. Certainly in the first set between games 4 and 8, there was a run that Korda won 4 games in a row. And Landaluce was not laying a glove on Korda's serve. In fact, he didn't even get a break point on the Korda serve until the beginning of the 3rd set. And we know the asterisks regarding that because Korda needed a medical timeout, had the back issue. The turning point in that match was the end of that 2nd set tiebreak when Korda was serving really, really well, gets a match point on his serve, misses the first serve, 2nd serve, Landaluce hits an unbelievable backhand return, gets it to 6-all, wins the tiebreak. Korda takes a medical timeout, is nowhere for the first 10 minutes of the 3rd set, just can't move. He's hitting slices on his backhand. His serve is not hitting the spots, and his back is troubling him. Landaluce goes up 3-love, and although Sebi Korda got the break back, that was it. But Landaluce is in the quarterfinals, and you still have to beat what's in front of you, and Landaluce has done that very, very, very impressively. Lehecka, by the way, on the other hand, is someone we've been sleeping on him. We've been sleeping on him because he's either been injured or he's just not getting the results. Like going out in the first round in Australia this year, getting to the quarters in Qatar, but losing comfortably to Artifice, losing to Felix in Dubai, albeit as a decent run, I guess, to the quarters, but then losing to Baez in Indian Wells, 4-1. And I know Baez is doing all right this year and made some steps forward on the hard courts, etc. But still, this is a player, don't forget, that Steve Flink has in his year-end top 10. And I understand why. I think he's got a great profile. I think he's got a great game, especially on the hard courts, which, of course, dominate the tour. So you could just have a great hard court career and be a top 10 player. Also, I love the profile. You know, 1.85 m, 24 years old, is now approaching his prime, been in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open before. I think his temperament is pretty good. By the way, I'm doing him a disservice. I think he's decent on the clay as well, as he proved in Madrid a couple of years ago. But it's about the health, isn't it, with Yiri? That year in Madrid, for example, he could well have been in the final, and who knows, even won the tournament, bearing in mind the injury travails of some of his rivals, Carlos and Yannick, etc. But that was the tournament that Felix got to the final with just, barely picking up a racket. I think Ghosty with that draw, bearing in mind everyone was just dropping like flies, would have been in the final against Andrei Rublev. I think Rublev would have beaten you, Ghosty. But, yeah. Lehecka beat Taylor Fritz yesterday. We know about some of Taylor's issues, both in terms of fitness and form, but still, when Taylor wins that 2nd set, you did wonder if the momentum was going to go in the direction of the American, but Yiri wrested it back and won impressively 6-2 in that 3rd set. These two have never met before, and therefore it makes the matchup a little bit more difficult to predict, but I am going to go for Yiri Lehecka in straight sets, as long as his body holds up. Asterisk. Okay, let's get to the next matchup, which is Alexander Zverev against Fran Cerundolo, and their head-to-head is particularly intriguing. 3-all is their head-to-head in terms of matches won and lost. The most recent 3 have all gone the way of Zverev, and I think that is significant, albeit one came via retirement in Canada last year for Cerundolo. But the 3 matches before that were all on clay that went Cerundolo's way, including one during that South American swing where, Zverev didn't seem to want to be there, maybe. Certainly didn't seem to show his best tennis during that spell, but he also didn't show it during the Sunshine Double last year. But the last 3 have all been on hard courts and have all gone the way of Alexander Zverev, including at the Australian Open this year in straight sets. In fact, Zverev hasn't lost a set to him since Madrid of last year. So, okay, it was a retirement in Canada, but that's still theoretically 6 sets in a row that have gone the way of Zverev. Sorry, 7 sets in a row, because Australia, of course, was a 3-set win. And they've all been on a hard court, and they've all been at similar stages, round of 16s, quarterfinals. Of course, this match in Miami is a quarterfinal. Zverev, not traditionally done well in Miami. Never been in the final, of course, before. He came through against Dam in the first round, Cilic in 3 sets in the second, Halles in straights in the third, albeit 7-6, 7-6. I still don't think he's playing that well, but the draw, I would say, pretty kind. Dam in the first round in particular, and Halles in the round of 16. I think it's a kind draw for Zverev to get to the quarters. Now, of course, the real big deal starts. But it has actually, it's a good way that Zverev has turned this head-to-head around. Cerundolo, on the other hand, he does like Miami, doesn't he? He's been in the semis in the past and has done pretty well in the second half, at least, of the Sunshine Double. Last year, he got to the quarters, didn't he, before he lost to Dimitrov. In 2024, he got to just the round of 32, but I know he got to the semis. Was it maybe in 2022 or 2023? Got to the quarters in 2023 before losing to Hachanov. 2022, was it maybe? Yeah, 2022, lost to Casper Ruud. Probably that scoreline, that result probably disappointed him a bit because 4-1 to Casper Ruud in Miami. Anyway, he's good here. But is he good enough to beat Alexander Zverev? Ghosty here going for Zverev in 2 and Jean going for Zverev in 3. I'm going to go for 3 sets and I'm going to go for Alexander Zverev. Is that it? Have I done all the matches? I've done Sabalenka Baptiste. I think I've done them all now. Let me just check. Women's singles, we've got Pegula Rybakina. I've done that one. I've done Baptiste Sabalenka. I've done Gauff against Muchova. Landaluce Lehecka I've done. Oh, I haven't done Tommy Paul Artifice. Sorry, Tommy. Sorry for forgetting you. I've done Cerundolo Zverev and I've done. So let's just have a quick word on Tommy Paul against Artifice. Their head-to-head reads 1-0. In Tommy Paul's favor. Tommy Paul and Artifice. Artifice has obviously spent a long while off the tour injured over the last, well, I guess it dates back to the French Open. I think he tried to make a comeback in North America, didn't he? And that didn't work out. Kind of Jack Draper-esque. Tommy Paul has had his injury issues over the last 6 to 12 months as well, but has been showing some good signs in the last few months on the hard courts in North America. Feast played Tommy Paul when he was a boy, did he? Okay. How did that pan out? Or are you talking about boys tennis, or are you talking about the one match that they had in 2023 in Shanghai, which was a 3-set win that went the way of Tommy, by the way? I think this one's maybe the hardest of all the matches we've spoken about to predict. I think Rybakina Pegula is a tricky one. But given the fact that they've not played each other since 2023, and given the fact that we don't really know about the matchup, but maybe Tommy Paul had a few more bumps on his way. You wouldn't think he'd lose a set to Manarino. You wouldn't think he'd get pushed to a 3rd set tiebreak to Collignon. Also a nice draw, I would say, round of 16 to get Thomas Martin Echeverri. I think on a clay court that might have been a different result, but straight sets 1 and 3 for Tommy on the hard courts in Miami. So he's in the quarterfinals. Artifice, I think his form is just a bit better right now. Vacherot is a very difficult round of 16 that he came and get up against. But you could say that Artifice had a lucky round of 32 matchup with Stefanos Tsitsipas. That's a really easy round of 32 match for Arta to have. And also Darwin Blanche. But Blanche obviously putting up a much bigger fight than Stefanos in the round of 64. Maybe Darwin will be overtaken Stefanos in the rankings pretty soon, or maybe not even overtaking. Just as long as you just stand still in the rankings, you're going to be going past Stefanos anyway. At some point, it won't be long before me and Ghosty are flying past the Greek. Yeah, but Artifice's form is really, really good. Since coming back in Rotterdam, where he was unlucky to get Alex de Minaur, eventual champion, in his first match. And it was 7-6, 6-2, but it was close. And I thought, okay, that's pretty good for your first match back. And then his second tournament back, he gets to the final, albeit he suffers a brutal loss to an unbelievable performance from Carlos Alcaraz, maybe the best performance of his career, certainly outside of slams anyway. Just unbelievable level. And Artur wasn't quite ready for that, but also maybe never will be, but who knows? That's a discussion for another day. And then in Indian Wells, he got to the quarters, didn't he, before losing to Zverev there. And now he's in Miami with this run to this matchup with Tommy. Quickly get your predictions in the live chat, because I'm about to give mine, which is Artur Fils in 3 sets. You guys in the live chat are suggesting that the Vachereau win was very impressive. I agree. The one matchup, of course, that these two have had came in Shanghai. Ghost is going for Fils in 3, but don't tell Mario, and especially don't tell Isabel and Rachel. Indeed. Vachereau hit 19 aces against Artur Fils. Okay, that's interesting. Fils had to work really hard. Well, yeah, but I mean, Vachereau is an unbelievably tough one to come up against. And Jean is also going for Artur Fils in 3 sets. All right. Thanks for joining. And to everybody else, you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.